you ever rent a storage unit and just forget what's inside it? Most people have a box of old clothes, maybe some furniture they couldn't bring themselves to throw away. I had all of that too. I just didn't know someone else was in there with it. Let me back up. This was about 2 years ago. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment in Tucson, Arizona. Small place. No room for the stuff we used to share, the camping gear, the holiday decorations, the extra furniture that didn't fit anywhere. So I rented a unit at one of those big storage facilities off the interstate. The kind with the orange roll-up doors and the keypad at the gate. Paid $30 a month. Didn't think much about it. For the first few months, I visited pretty regularly, dropping things off, picking stuff up. But then life got busy, the way it always does, and I stopped going. Weeks turned into months. I was paying the bill automatically, so I never really had a reason to think about it. It was just this place where my old life sat collecting dust. Then one afternoon in October, I got a call from the facility manager. A woman named Carol. She had this flat, tired voice, the kind you get from working the same desk job for 20 years. She told me there had been a complaint from the unit adjacent to mine, something about a smell. She asked if I had maybe left food in there by accident. I hadn't. I was pretty sure of that, but I told her I'd come take a look. I drove out there the next evening after work. The facility was mostly quiet by then, maybe 6 o'clock, the sun already going orange and low. The gate beeped open with my code, and I walked down the row to Unit 47. My padlock was right where I left it, hadn't been touched. I clicked it open, grabbed the handle, and rolled the door up. The smell hit me first. Not food, not mold. It was something warmer than that. Lived in. Like the inside of a car that someone had been sleeping in for too long. I stood there for a second, just breathing through my mouth. The unit looked normal at first glance. Boxes stacked against the back wall. The old dresser. The camping gear in the corner. But then I noticed something. One of the camping chairs was unfolded, just sitting there open in the middle of the space facing the door, like someone had been sitting in it recently. I told myself I probably left it like that, probably just knocked it open the last time I was there. I stepped inside and started looking around, and that's when I noticed the other things. There was a plastic grocery bag tucked behind one of the boxes. Inside it, a half-eaten sleeve of crackers, an empty water bottle, and a gas station receipt. The receipt was dated 6 days ago. I hadn't been to that unit in for a long time. My chest went cold. I stood very still and looked at every corner of that unit. Nothing. Nobody there, but everything felt wrong. I called Carol from the parking lot, told her what I found. She went quiet for a moment and then said, "This is not the first time we've had this." She said it like she was tired of saying it. Apparently, there had been 2 similar situations at their other location across town, people finding evidence that someone had been living in a unit, using the code to access the facility during off hours, slipping into unlocked or improperly secured units, and staying there overnight, gone before the morning shift. She said they had security footage, but the cameras at the far end of my row had been out for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Nobody had come to fix them. The police came. 2 officers who were professional and calm and who made the whole thing feel somehow more disturbing, not less. They dusted for prints, took the grocery bag as evidence. One of them walked the row with a flashlight, checking the gaps at the bottom of other units, looking for signs of disturbance. Then one of them asked me something that I've thought about almost every day since. He asked, "How many times would you say you came by in the last 2 months?" I told him twice, maybe 3 times in the daytime. He nodded slowly and said, "So whoever was using your unit knew your schedule." I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the parking lot in the fading light, trying to figure out how that was possible. I'd never talked to anyone at that facility. Barely made eye contact with Carol when I came to sign papers. But storage facilities have patterns. People who are paying close enough attention can learn them. They found the guy 4 days later. He wasn't a random vagrant looking for a warm place to sleep. He was a man in his late 40s who had been watching the facility for weeks before he ever entered it. He had a notebook, an actual notebook, with unit numbers and visitor times written out in columns. He had been rotating between 3 different units, 2 of them not even his own, using them based on whose schedules gave him the longest windows alone. Mine gave him the longest window of all. The detective who called me said it like he was delivering a weather report. Calm, informational. He said the man had no prior record, no clear motive beyond what he called structured transients. He wasn't stealing, wasn't destroying anything. He was just living inside other people's spaces, in the places they forgot to look. That's the part I can't shake. Not that he was there, but that he studied me well enough to know exactly when I wouldn't be. I cleared out the unit that weekend. Every box, every piece of furniture, every camping chair. I put what I could in my apartment and donated the rest. I haven't rented a storage unit since. And sometimes, late at night, when I think about how long this went on before anyone noticed, I think about all the things in life we stop paying attention to. The places we set up and then walk away from. The routines we repeat without thinking. Someone else is always watching the routine, even when you're not. Most people think the scariest thing about renting a storage unit is forgetting to pay the bill. I used to think that too. Until the night I went back for a box I forgot and realized someone had been going through my things. It was October, 2 years ago. My wife and I had just moved from Columbus to a smaller place outside of Nashville, and like a lot of people mid-move, we shoved half our life into a 10x10 unit about 3 miles from our new apartment. Furniture we weren't sure about, boxes we hadn't unpacked in years, the usual chaos of a life you're trying to reorganize. The facility was one of those 24-hour access places, clean enough, good lighting in the front, outdoor units in the back where ours was. You punch in a gate code, drive around, unlock your unit, do your thing, leave. Simple. We'd been there maybe 4 or 5 times over 2 months, always during the day, always quick in and out trips. That night was different. It was a Tuesday, almost 11. I'd been looking for my daughter's birth certificate all day. We needed it for a school enrollment form due the next morning. I tore the apartment apart. Then I remembered. The filing box. The one I'd specifically told myself I'd unpack first and somehow never did. It was in the unit. My wife was already asleep. I didn't want to wake her. I just grabbed my keys, punched the address into my phone, and drove over. The facility looked different at night. The front entrance was lit up fine, but once you drove through the gate and curved around to the outdoor units in the back, the lighting got thin. A few yellow-orange bulbs on poles, long shadows between the rows. My unit was in the last row, tucked near the back fence. I parked, walked over, and unlocked the padlock. The door rolled up and I stepped in with my phone flashlight on. I found the filing box toward the back, behind a rolled-up rug. I popped it open, started flipping through folders. Birth certificate there. I grabbed it, closed the box, and that's when my light swept across a stack of bins to my left. One of them was open. I stopped. I knew for a fact that bin was closed the last time I was here. I'm particular about that. I close and latch everything before I leave because I don't want dust getting in. That bin, a big blue one, held winter clothes, was not latched. The lid was sitting slightly off-center, like someone had gone in and set it back down without pressing it shut. I stood there for a second, just looking at it. I went over and lifted the lid all the way. The clothes inside were disturbed, not dumped out, not ransacked, just shifted, like someone had moved things around and tried to put them back. I checked the bin next to it. Same thing. Items pushed to the side. A jacket that I knew had been folded was now bunched up in a corner. I stepped back and looked at the whole unit differently. Little things I hadn't noticed when I walked in started surfacing. A box near the front that was pushed a few inches to the right. A plastic bag I didn't remember leaving near the door. A folding chair that was definitely not open the last time I was there. I never unfold anything in that unit, sitting open in the corner like someone had been using it. Sitting in there, in my unit, using a chair, my chest went cold. I looked at the padlock in my hand. No damage. No scratches around the keyhole beyond normal wear. Whoever had been inside knew how to get in. Either they had a key or they knew something about that lock I didn't. I pulled the door down and stood outside, looking up and down the row. Still. Quiet. No other cars I could see near my row. I called the facility's emergency line right there from the parking lot. The overnight guy answered, sounded half asleep, took my unit number and said he'd pull the access logs. I waited in my car with the doors locked. He called back 11 minutes later. He said my unit had been accessed 6 times in the past 3 weeks. My code was used twice. Those were my actual visits. The other 4 times, the access code used was a master override, a facility-level code. He got quiet after he said that. I asked him what that meant. He said it was a code that only staff were supposed to have. The police came out that night, filed a report. The facility launched an internal review. What they found over the following week was worse than I expected. A part-time employee, a guy who'd worked there about 4 months, had been using the master code to access units across the whole facility. Not just mine. More than 30 units total. He'd been taking small things. Cash, jewelry, electronics. Things people wouldn't necessarily notice were missing right away. In a few units, including mine, he'd apparently just been inside, sitting, looking through things. They found a spiral notebook in his car. He'd written descriptions of items he saw in different units, what people owned, what was valuable. Some of the entries were just observations. Notes about family photos he'd seen. Kids' names written on labeled boxes. Personal details he had no reason to know. That part never made the news. The detective told me about it quietly, almost like she wasn't sure she should. I think about that notebook sometimes. About the fact that he wasn't just stealing. He was learning people, cataloging them, building some kind of picture of strangers' lives from the inside of their storage units in the dark, sitting in a folding chair that wasn't his. We cleared out our unit the next day, canceled the contract. I never used a storage facility again. But here's what I want you to take away from this. The next time you rent one of those units and hand over a code or sign a lease with a facility you don't know anything about, understand that you are trusting strangers with everything in that room. Your financial documents, your kids' memorabilia, your whole history packed into boxes, and most of the time that trust is fine, most of the time. My Uncle Dale passed away in March. Heart attack. He was 53, lived alone, and had no kids. My mom was his only surviving family, and she was too torn up to deal with his affairs, so the job fell to me. I was 26, recently between jobs, and I figured it was something I could do for her. It didn't feel like a big ask at the time. The storage facility was one of those older places off a state highway, not the clean, climate-controlled kind you see advertised online. This was the type with rusted roll-up doors and gravel lots and fluorescent lights that buzzed. The manager handed me the key without looking up from his desk, told me Dale's unit was in the back row, and said I had until end of month to clear it. I went on a Wednesday afternoon. Quiet day. Maybe 2 other people the whole time I was there. Dale was not a hoarder exactly, but he was a keeper. Boxes stacked neatly along the walls, old tools, a rolled-up rug. A twin mattress leaned against the back. A dismantled bookshelf, normal stuff mostly. I started with the boxes closest to the door. Dishes, books, old clothes I'd bag for donation. I was moving on autopilot for the first hour or so, not thinking too hard, just working through the grief by staying busy. Then I got to a section in the back left corner. 3 large plastic totes, the kind with snap-on lids. Heavy duty. I assumed tools or seasonal stuff. I popped the first one open. Photographs. Hundreds of them, loose, not in albums. I started going through them because I thought there might be family pictures my mom would want. Most were Dale in various places, fishing trips, a cabin somewhere, holiday dinners I vaguely remembered. Normal stuff. But the second tote stopped me cold. More photographs, but these weren't family memories. These were images of people, strangers from the look of them, in what appeared to be candid, unposed shots. Not necessarily sinister on their face, but there was something about the angles. Shot from a distance, shot from inside cars, shot from positions where the subject clearly had no idea they were being photographed. I told myself there was probably an explanation. Dale liked photography. Maybe these were from some class, some project. People do strange things with cameras sometimes. I moved to the third tote. This one had documents, printed pages, handwritten notes, and what looked like records. I'm not going to detail everything I found because honestly, even now, it's not something I can fully process. But what I can tell you is this: there were names, full names, addresses, daily schedules written out in Dale's handwriting in that tight, careful print I'd known since I was a kid watching him sign birthday cards for me. These weren't his friends. I didn't recognize a single name. But the level of detail, the specificity of what he'd written down about these people's lives, their routines, where they worked, what time they left their homes in the morning, it made my hands go numb. I sat down on the concrete floor of that unit and I just stared at the tote for a long time. My Uncle Dale, who came to my high school graduation, who made the best smoked brisket I've ever eaten, who helped my mom move apartments twice, who had a laugh you could hear 3 rooms over. Here's where it gets worse, and I want you to understand, this is the part I've thought about every single day since. I kept going through the documents because some part of me needed to understand. Underneath the papers was a smaller box, sealed with packing tape. I almost left it. I almost walked out of that unit and never looked back. But I opened it. Inside was a prepaid phone, old, barely charged, and a small spiral notebook. The notebook had a list of what I can only describe as observations, entries with dates going back years. Specific, chilling details about people's lives recorded with a kind of calm, methodical detachment that scared me more than any outburst ever could. One entry referenced a woman by first name and neighborhood. Another described a man's evening jogging route with notes on which sections had no streetlights. My uncle had been doing this for a long time. I called the police from the parking lot of that storage facility. I didn't know what else to do. I sat in my car with the door locked and my hands shaking, and I told the dispatcher what I found. They sent 2 officers. Then 2 became 4. Then a detective arrived and I sat in a cold office for 3 hours answering questions about a man I thought I knew completely. I don't know the full outcome. The investigation was handled by a different jurisdiction. I was told they were following up on the names in those documents, trying to determine if any actual harm had occurred or if any of those people needed to be notified. I never got full closure on what they found. Part of me is grateful for that. I cleared the rest of the unit the following week, donated what I could, trashed the rest. The facility manager didn't ask questions. I never told my mom. I don't know if that was the right call. I still don't. If you enjoyed these storage unit horror stories, drop a comment below and tell me what part got to you the most. I read every single one. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button too. Share this with someone who loves horror or someone you just want to keep up at night. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.